Awesome, awesome. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with the second half of today. And I have been looking forward to having this conversation because I want you to understand that what we're going to have is the beginning to a much longer and deeper conversation that we are going to have over the course of this year. Wait a second. So understand that you may want to take notes on some of this stuff, but understand that I'm putting this in a context and putting some framework around it so that one, we can have this discussion, but two, so I'm not hurting myself or anyone else. I am not an attorney. I don't pretend to be one on television. I am not a CPA or a tax professional. I'm not giving tax advice because I'm not a tax professional. I'm just going to share some things that I overheard a guy sharing with another guy whose brother was in the, other parts of industry, and they kind of, had a conversation, and I realized I can benefit some other people sharing some of this information, if you kind of get my drift. Wink, wink. Okay, next slide. Or do I have it? Okay. Now, do we jump 2 slides? Okay, next slide. Okay, great. Now, no, go back. Okay, perfect. And we have the recording on, correct? I just wanted to make sure. And let me bring back up the chat in case anybody's got that. Okay, cool. All right. I have this picture up here, and if those of you that don't know who that is, that's Joe Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and his other son, Ted. And I have this up here because I have people use the Kennedys as kind of like an example of someone that was doing business, selling alcohol illegally during Prohibition, and then ended up becoming rich. And bootlegging is part of this. And the reason I asked the question, bootlegger or businessman? Next slide. The answer is really both. But I want to talk about this in this process of what he did go through, because I'm going to share this from a historical perspective to put into context what we're dealing with here in the cannabis industry. I want you to understand something. When it comes to prohibition of alcohol, it only lasted 13 years, 10 months, and 19 days. Okay, so it wasn't like 50 years, it wasn't 100 years, it was 13 years, just shy of 14 years. Unregulated bootleg liquor caused blindness, paralysis, and on average created 1,000 deaths a year. Okay, this is people making alcohol at home because they couldn't go somewhere and actually buy alcohol. They couldn't produce alcohol the way the law was written. Okay, it cost the federal government. Prohibition cost the federal government at that time, and understand Prohibition ended in 1933, right before World War II, in between World War I and World War II. It cost the federal government $11 billion in tax revenue. Now, understand, this is a time when people were paying 2 cents for a cup of coffee. The coffee I got right here cost me $6 this morning. So I'm sharing this to put in perspective these numbers. And then all of you have heard of the name Rockefeller. You heard Jay-Z play on the name Rockefeller. But the Rockefellers were a rich family in America at the time, and they were very involved with shaping industry in the United States. And a lot of presidents at that time would bring in the successful business people who were the cutting edge minds to get ideas and put together, strategy and formula to help the country grow. Very similar to what happens now and how politicians talk to business people. Well, understand, according to Rockefeller, the national experiment of prohibition was a resounding failure. And this is significant because he was pro-prohibition when it was put in place. He was one of the people that felt like alcohol was contributing to, the destruction of society. And he was one of the people that felt like people were spending their money, their personal income on alcohol. And if people, and understand this is during the Depression, and if people didn't have to spend their money on alcohol, they would then be spending their money on clothing, entertainment, and food and other things that would help the country's economy grow and continue to prosper and rebound from the Depression. Well, the repeal of prohibition didn't reverse the Depression, but it did fund the New Deal. And if you go back and look at your history, the New Deal was what helped America crawl out of that financial hole to start putting things in place right before we went into World War II. Okay, taxes brought in $1.35 billion. That's in 1934. Okay, so it brought back all of that revenue because the industry opened up. Alcohol was something that people wanted. A lot of politicians made these decisions because they didn't talk to the actual citizens. They felt like they were holier than thou and knew what was best for people. Understand, different time in America, all those things. Now, next slide. Now, the truth, like I said, is both. And I want you to just follow what I'm saying here. In the fall of 93, when it became clear, yes, Kennedy did sell bootleg liquor. However, at the time of Prohibition, when Prohibition was put in place, he had a stockpile of alcohol because he was reading the market. And he had a stockpile of alcohol. And understand, the way the Prohibition law was written, it said you couldn't produce or sell. It did not say you could not have. And he had tons of alcohol. So when he saw that Prohibition was getting ready to end, he used his political connections and everything that he had earned in terms of money to get exclusive contracts to import high-end Scotch whiskey and gin from the United Kingdom. Okay, so if you've ever had a Dewar's, you've ever had Gordon gin in your martini, he was the person that started importing those products to the United States. So he had total control over that part of the alcohol market. When Prohibition was lifted in 1933, thirsty Americans bought up Scotch and gin by the caseful because they hadn't been able to get it. And when Kennedy sold his liquor franchise, a decade later, he walked away with $8.2 million. This is back when a cup of coffee was 2 cents. And today, that's over $100 million in money. Why am I putting this in this context? This same thing is happening in cannabis, okay? However, it is not the big company that I'm scared of isn't Cresco. It isn't Columbia Care. If you think Columbia Care is who you'll be competing against, you're mistaken. Your competitor is that smoke shop that's already selling illegal weed, because that smoke shop will continue to bring heat to your legitimate business with it just being down the street because of all the calamity it's going to create in the community with people consuming a product that's not regulated and tested. The real enemy is big business, okay? And when I'm saying big business, and when I've said this in events, people thought I was talking about Columbia Care. Understand, let's talk about Virginia. Since we're here in Virginia, there's a company called Altria, okay? Tobacco company. Some of you might have heard of it, had family members work for it. Understand that Altria could write a check, which would be the equivalent of a corporate personal check, and buy every cannabis company in the United States. Now, when I say this in a live event, I'm saying this and pausing for dramatic effect, but I want that to sink in to you all that keep arguing this point, because you're wasting your energy on the wrong thing. And I'm trying to help you get ahead if you really do want to be in this in this industry. Altria, Walmart, Jack Daniels, Anheuser-Busch, those are your competitors, because those are the competitors that are positioning for federal approval. That's what this dude right here on the screen did. The equivalent of alcohol back then, he positioned himself for federal approval, which made him a rack of money, and then he walked away. Why am I saying this in this way to you all so bluntly? because of what we said at the beginning. If you don't get in early, you don't ever get in. So you need to find out how you want to get in. So you can, because there's a lot of work to do based on what Tahir just shared. Next slide. Legacy to legit. Legacy cannabis sales are driven by the same market and integration of the market into the legalized industry. What does that mean? The same reasons why consumers in the legacy market want product are the same reasons people in the legit market want product. However, the people in the legit market don't necessarily understand, in the legacy market, don't necessarily understand that by supporting their local weed man who delivers to their door, or their son or grandchild's friend that delivers to their door, yes, it's convenient, but they're propping up the part of the industry that will tear down the part of the industry you want to get into. So to transition, there's things that you're going to need to do, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And we're just having a superficial, surface level conversation here because we're just starting this dialogue. Later on this year, we are going to do a couple events that are entirely dedicated to getting into granular detail in terms of people positioning themselves to transition from the legacy, or for those of you that don't know what legacy means, the black market, the illegal cannabis sales, to be able to transition into the legit cannabis sales, which was possible in California. Some people were able to do that because they put the mechanisms in place. But then there were people that did that and still, I won't say what I was about to say, but they still messed up their opportunity in the industry because they wouldn't do what's necessary to completely go legit. They tried to function in both spaces. And California is not Virginia. Virginia loves using people as an example. And you best believe if you got a legal cannabis opportunity and you choose to continue doing dirt, you will be made an example of, because that is how the South is, especially when you are black or brown. We believe, now here in this next statement, there is an economic formula that allows states and federal government to economically benefit from an IRS and criminal amnesty perspective for a multi-phase tax collection. And that's what this is about. This is about people not paying taxes on money, and this is about people dealing in contraband. So there's mechanisms for having those conversations, which we're not going to dive into all of that today, but I put that statement in there because I want you guys to understand that there's going to be a process. It is not going to be like, remember, let's just get to the next slide. Okay, when you look at this slide here, this right here is what gets everybody excited. Okay, the money. People are always talking about the money potential, potential. Look at the growth, This is a ton of money, yes. But understand what this number that you see on the screen does not even come close to alcohol sales, does not even come close to a fraction of tobacco sales. You understand? This is the beginning. So many people get so caught up in the cannabis space thinking about right now and 3 years from now. That's important, but you also have to be thinking about 50 years from now and what the industry will look like or how it can evolve, because that's a developed industry. The cannabis industry is not even a baby yet because it has not been around long enough to really deal with all of the turmoil that comes with established industries, because it just hasn't been around yet. So $72 billion by 2030. The reason I put this up here is because we're going to have a conversation and we're going to emphasize about character. And I'm a firm believer that money only intensifies a person's character. If a person was a jerk when they were broke, when they become a successful cannabis entrepreneur, they're just a rich jerk. People that are solid people that have a genuine interest in doing the right thing and building a community, once they get money, they contribute to that even more. And those are the people that VMCC is looking to prop up, help, support in any way we can. If you're a taker, don't waste my time, because there's plenty of those out there and you're not going to get anywhere in this industry because it just seems to weed people out. Attrition is very real. Next slide. Now, I put this up here because most people don't understand all the different parts to the cannabis industry. What this slide is up here for is so you can see where you fit into this actual industry. There's multiple parts. The parts that you see in purple are top tier licenses, or what would be considered licenses. So you have cultivation, manufacturing is making your edibles, your gummies, all of that kind of stuff. Distribution, that is the distribution model that you see in Colorado and California, which Virginia will most likely not have. But distribution in regards to Virginia, you can look at it like this. The ABC, Alcohol Beverage Control Authority, is the distribution for alcohol in the state of Virginia. So distribution in cannabis in some states works the same way, not where the state controls it, but you have 7 to 8 companies across the country that control all of the supply of market product being delivered to a retailer so they can sell it. That's bad for the cannabis industry because that distributor can control your market, your city. That distributor can control how much money you can actually make because they control what you sell. So I have this up here so you all can see there's a lot of different parts here. All these different parts of the industry all have 5 to or more businesses that are small ancillary businesses that don't require the same type of licensing or money to start, but support these businesses to keep them open. And that's kind of what Tahir was talking about earlier. He's got a team of people and team of businesses that keep his business going because that's how it works. So look at this and you get an idea of how you might fit into the industry. Now let's talk about some of these action points. Next slide. Number 1, there aren't any shortcuts. If you're that person thinking that, yeah, when they turn on the industry, I'm going to go down there and get a license, and then I will start phasing out my black market operation because I can get in then. Wrong. That's not how it works. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. If you listen to what Tahir was saying, you got to work your ass off because there's a lot of things that people develop habit-wise in the legacy market. And that brings me to number 2. You got to be honest with yourself and be very real, very, very real, very real. I know I've met people over the years that have done pretty well in the legacy market, dealing in growing product, okay? However, they're lazy as hell. They can grow 2 rotations a year perfectly. And I'm not talking about outdoor cultivation because once they get the harvest, it cures, they sell, they make their money. They got to have fun, spend the money, go show everybody the money they made, look like they balling out of control and all of that silly shit to the point where when it's time to start back up, they're starting back up because they need to make money. That is not a business. That is a hustle. You got to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, are you hustling or are you driving a business? A lot of folks think they're driving a business. You know when you're driving a business because if you're the owner, you cannot show up for a week and you don't have to worry. It keeps moving forward. If you always got to be there, you don't have the team you're going to need yet to transition. So you need to start working on some some HR, and finding some people that you'll be able to work with and trust if you are fortunate enough to get a license. Number 3, you got to overcome yourself and get rid of those bad habits. Why? Because in business period, now I'm not talking about just cannabis, but in business period, bad habits typically translate into pain. And that pain is financial, and that financial pain shows up in your pocket. Okay, so if you're the person that doesn't want to deal with numbers, you're going to have your girlfriend, she's going to be your bookkeeper. Wrong. If she's not an accountant, you are going to have serious issues because of a law called 280E. If you're not familiar with it, write it down, go Google it and research it. We're not going to talk about that here. We've talked about that many times. Number 4, you got to structure your future business venture. So if you're in cultivation, right, and you're managing 100 plants, that ain't a commercial grow. You got to be able to get to the point where you can manage 1,000 plants, and you can't be dealing with product dying. You can't be dealing with aphids infesting your harvest. You have to be on top of your stuff because this is a business. And if you're one of those folks that want to transition from the legacy to the legit, because there's 2 types of folks. There's people that are true legacy. And let me explain. According to that term that was really popped up in California cannabis years ago, those were people to be considered legacy. You had to be in the cannabis space, growing as a cultivator, documented for 20 years. Okay, that's what they considered legacy. Now, as time is going on and more states have opened up, that number has come down because states have started to realize we can't have product growing. We can't sell product if we haven't grown product. Okay. And not everyone in the state knows how to grow products. So that's why there was opportunity in California and some places for people to transition. So I know it's possible. It's just that when these places did it, many of them did it so jacked up, it created a lot of problems for the new entrepreneur as well as the state because it wasn't thought out. So what we're proposing is basically bringing together the professionals that'll be necessary to help shape this plan. And that's why we're going to, share this with the public later on this year after we get through the legislative process, because one conversation at a time. Number 5, like you heard Tahir say, write out your business plan. If you think you're going to get somebody to write you a check for 750 grand off of what you share with them over a cup of coffee, you are insane. An investor wants to see that you've put in the work and energy to be worthy of their money. Because guess what? Their money didn't just fall out of the sky. They had to work their ass off to get it. So they want to make sure that they're giving it to someone that respects that will pay them back. Because every investor wants to get paid back. That's how they build their wealth, finding the right people, helping them, and then helping them pay you back. So if you can't write a business plan, one, people that come to me saying they want to get into this business and they want help, they want me to connect them with an investor, they want me to help them get resources, they want me to point them in the right direction. And I ask for a business plan and they can't tell me anything and they tell, oh, it's all right up here. You're wasting my time. And I'm not taking you to an investor friend of mine or anybody I know to waste their time, because that's a reflection on me. If you haven't gotten a business plan and you say you want to be in this industry and you've been saying that for a year, stop lying to yourself. Either get serious and stop talking and write the damn information down on paper so it can be critiqued. The other thing is a business plan can be emailed to an investor in another state. You can't go sit down and meet with everybody. That business plan represents you and your interests beyond what is actually out there. So understand that if you don't want to do this, cool. But I'm tired of people bullshitting, wasting my time. I am tired of people talking about this is what they want. I gave up my other business to dedicate helping my community get into this industry. I don't see a lot of people willing to put their balls on the table and sacrifice to be able to help people. And now we have the opportunity. It is so important that you understand how serious this is. This isn't 5 years of opportunity. This is once in a lifetime. So understand, you got to align yourself with the correct advocates and vendors. Just like Tahir was saying, if you think you can just pop up one day and I'm getting into the cannabis space and you've never been to MJ Biz, you've never been to a normal event. The next one in this state is coming up next weekend. If you've never been to any of these things and you think you're going to step into this space and be successful because you sell ounces of weed a week, you are insane. You are insane. You are lying to yourself. It feels good, but you got to decide, do you want to feel good or do you want to live good? If you want to live quality of life and actually be living the life, you're going to have to put forth the effort, and we're willing to help you, but you got to be willing to work. So number 7, get your affairs in order. And I say this to business owners and those of you that didn't know, I was a business consultant where I helped startups and businesses go from small to large. That's what I did for years. Understand, get your affairs in order. Okay, here's what I mean. If you're the guy functioning or lady functioning in the legacy space, okay, and you're growing, selling, whatever. If you're selling in the legacy space, there's only one opportunity for you if that's what you want to do, is going to be getting a dispensary like Tahir talked about earlier. We've talked a lot about that. You want to get into the cultivation space? There's a lot of different ways you can enter that. However, when it comes to getting an investor's dollar, they're also going to look at your personal life. If you're the type of person that you're married, you got 2 girlfriends, you got kids all over the place, you got money over here, you got mom, you're paying her bills, you're doing all this other crap, you are not going to get into this industry because you're going to be such a red flag for hassle. People that are financially extended are the ones that keep trying to sell contraband weed in California because they started in the industry and they started spending money before they were really making money. There's a lot of people in this industry that I've met that don't know that I know the person that wrote the check to invest in their company. And I know they're spending their investment money so they can drive around in that Benz, so they can take their wife on private planes flying to MJ Biz. It's all fake, just like a lot of crap in music. Get your affairs in order. If you don't know how to manage money, you better start learning. Or you better be prepared to pay for a bookkeeper to be in-house. If you don't know how to deal with regulation, you better learn. Testing is a regular part of the cannabis industry. You can't sell your product, move your product, give your product away if it is not tested. Because in the legal industry, they're not going to let people consume dirt weed. Just because you think you grow and it's 74%, it's 36%. Great. But if it tests for 0.002% of mold on that shit, it's got to be burned. You have to be good at business. And unfortunately, I've been black a long time and I've had to live with the black tax a long time. Those of you that don't know what that is, be happy that you don't. Those that do, understand the tax is significant here too. However, there's a lot of people that want to see you do well. And there's a lot of people that'll help you do well if you are willing to put forth the effort to do the things necessary to get what you say you want. Tahir has already said that. Nagist has said that. Understand it's about you.